Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Mix. I'm really excited this week to have Hamburgh with me. Rin and I met through the F Entrepreneur campaign, so we were both selected to be, I can't remember if it's in the same year, we've discussed this, we still can't remember, but we were selected in the 100 entrepreneurial women that the campaign was spotlighting. I think it was the same year. And we've recently been working together on a client's website project, and I had a bit of a dough moment because I was looking for someone to write a guest post for me, and it wasn't until I approached Rin to do this piece of work I was like, aha. So maybe you've read the guest post that Rin wrote for me, maybe you didn't, but today what we're going to talk about is guest posting. Guest blogging even, so why you should do that and why it's good for you. Before I ask Rin to introduce herself, I just want to say that on the 15th of June I've got Amber Bush from Small Business Saturday on, talking about why it's so great being a Small Biz 100. I could tell you I'm one, but you want to hear it from the team that organised that, and I'm going to try and wheedle out some insider tips about the application process from Amber. So join me in 2 weeks, but let's get on to Rin and tell us a bit more about you and your business.
Cool. Okay, so Rin from Rinburg Co. Thank you for pronouncing my surname right, because nobody ever does. It's not Hamburgh.
Well, you told me it, so I don't like it when people my name's 5 letters and people still get mine wrong. So make a special effort.
But yeah, so Rinburg Co is a copywriting agency. So basically, we write words for businesses, but we've copywriting covers quite a lot of different things. We've kind of specialized in 2 key areas. I suppose the output of those 2 areas are like website copy and blogging as on sort of the simplest level. But essentially what we do is we help people to clarify and communicate their message, and then to establish their expertise. So the clarifying and communicating the message side of things is everything from our kind of bigger packages around brand voice and messaging work, where we actually kind of work on people sort of articulating that value proposition and what is it that you actually do and how can we say that in a way that's going to connect with the audience, and naturally that often leads on to writing their website copy. And then with the blogging, it's not just a sort of about bashing out SEO content. It's very much around helping expert-led businesses to kind of showcase that knowledge. So a lot of the people we work with are very much kind of leaders in their field. They might work in quite complex subjects, and they sometimes struggle to kind of get that across to people. So that's what we help them to do.
Cool. I knew when I started my business that I had to blog, and I look back at some of the early blog posts I wrote and I think, oh my God, did you really write that? And they looked great at the time. I mean, we've all got to start somewhere, right? And I think people look at me because I am a marketer. They're like, what? You weren't happy? But I have to remind people that when I started my business journey, I almost started at the same level as someone who doesn't do marketing, because I had teams that did everything for me. So I had a blogging team and a social media team and a website team, and I pulled it all together. So I kind of knew how I got started, but how would you recommend people get started with blogging?
With blogging, I think what you said is really good about just starting. You've got to start somewhere. There's a lot of great resource out there. So there's, loads of blog posts on blogging. So how to, and not just sort of like how to blog, which is sort of quite broad, but, how to write a perfect subject line, or how to come up with great ideas for your blog, or how long should they be. There's real specifics out there. There's a lot of them on our blog. We've really tried hard to, I'm very conscious that, our blogging packages start at sort of £550, £600 a month. And I know that that's not something that everyone business can access. And so I always wanted to have that resource. So we've got lots of blog posts, and we also do the Level Up Your Business blog course. So that's a sort of 8-week digital. It's like a self-led course to keep the cost down. So I don't actually teach on it as such. I've got the notes that people can have, and then we do like tutorial sessions where we kind of as a group come together and sort of chat. So it's not to sort of plug that there are other people that do courses, there are other resources, and just start somewhere, keep practicing. we getting feedback's also really helpful. So if you know somebody within the marketing profession, so again, we do a service called Blog Surgery, where you can send in a blog post and then I'll sort of feedback on it. We'll kind of mark it up and go, okay, this bit you could tweak to do that, and okay, the intro, whatever it is. So again, like I think we created a lot of these small business resources back in the first lockdown, when I just realized how, well, I had a bit of time, which was great.
Yeah.
Also just sort of was realizing how important digital was to so many businesses that can't afford necessarily to hire a copywriter to do it for them. So so we've done that. So do that and just get started.
And people are a bit worried about the amount of blog posts that they have to, or they might have to create. And we're going to talk about guest blogging today, and that we both know that that's a good way to generate content for you without really having to do a lot of the legwork of writing. So in terms of guest blogging, outside of that time-saving method, why would you recommend people do guest blogging?
So it is definitely, it can be a good time saver, but it's a really good way to broaden your audience, and that's both ways round. So whether, obviously, if somebody's guest blogging for your site, that's where you're kind of saving time. Obviously you're not saving quite as much time if you're writing for somebody else's site, but either way it's going to increase the audience, because so for example, if I write a guest post for you, which I did, then I know that you're promoting that on your social channels, and all of your readership now will know about me, because I was there. But equally, if you wrote a post for me, then you would also promote that on your social channels, and your readers would come on to look at your post, but then they would also sort of see my site. So that kind of shared audience is really, really good. And the other thing is that, just by fact of being linked to that other person, that in itself can be a benefit. So, if you get asked to write a post for, a kind of more prestigious site, or, a business that's kind of bigger than yours, or has an audience that you want to get in front of, something like that, that can be good. And likewise, if an expert had said yes, that they'll take the time to write a post for your site, that's kind of saying something about you. So it's that kind of reputational aspect as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it's sometimes a little bit daunting, isn't it, trying to find the right person or people to write for and to have write for you. So in terms of that aspect, how would you pick the blogs that you want to write for, or the people that you want to write for you?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it kind of goes for, okay, let's look at people that write for you first, because they're kind of very different ways to sort of approach it. So if you're thinking about somebody to write a post for your site, generally speaking, if people do guest posts or like host guest posts on their site, they might want to do that as part of a series. Like, so at the moment we don't do guest posting. We did it right back when we first started. So when I first started, I decided to do the expert series. So I'd get experts in different aspects of things that would be relevant to the services we did, but wouldn't be the same. So I think I did get somebody talking about SEO, for example. So SEO feeds into website copy and blogging, but they're not a competitor. It's not the same thing. So that was kind of useful. So you might think about a series and go, okay, what criteria should people fulfill in order to be on this? So on the bottom end of the scale, you've got these scammers who are emailing you every 5 minutes going, "Oh, we've found your site and it's amazing and we shall write a blog post for it." It's like, no, definitely not, because they either want you to pay money, or they're just get backlinks, and it's just a bit dodgy, really. Through to the other side, where you've got like kind of celebs who you would love to get on, and it's going to be like just kind of sheer luck if they're going to say yes on it. But then in the middle, there's all, think about who's already in your network. So where you're already, for example, you might have kind of a good referral network. So like within marketing, that's, photographers, web designers, SEO people, general marketing strategists, we all sort of share a similar audience. So that can be quite useful. But also, for example, you might specialize in working with technology companies. So then you're going to get people from different technology brands to be talking about a particular aspect of either what they do or what you do or how it relates. So it's kind of just trying to narrow it down, so that rather than going, I can literally have everybody, it becomes much narrower stream of people, and that should help focus it.
Yeah, I think for me, definitely, I look for gaps in my, because I don't know everything there is to know about marketing, and nor do I want to be an expert in everything. So I've had people write guest posts about SEO. I've had you. I've had people talk about different website aspects, social media, and then I've got a whole series of where it's called Minal Meets, and I go off and interview people. So sometimes people that I ask to guest blog for me come back and say, "Oh, I'm not really confident about writing a guest post."
Yeah.
And then I go back and say, "Well, would you answer some questions?"
Yeah.
And then I turn that into a blog post. It's a nice way to get different experts onto your website and give people a richer environment to be in.
The Q&A format is really good because it's really easy to prepare. It's really easy for the other person to answer. You can do it by email, if you know, or you can do it like chatting. The thing is some people find the writing side of things more difficult, but the talking more easy. So more easy. Wow, you could tell. Like what we did, we started with a guest post and now we've brought it into video. But we could equally have done it the other way around. We could have had a chat and you could have essentially taken a transcript of this, and then obviously, I mean, you have to tidy it up, but then you could tidy that into. So this is, I always talk about like foundational content. You need one type of foundational content that you can really, really focus on, and then you can just repurpose and kind of reformat things across different spaces, which is quite useful. But I love the Q&A format, and it's so easy for people to read because they can scan the questions and only read the chunks that they're interested in.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. And that's, I was just thinking about also, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be to do with your specific subject. Like, for example, imagine that you are, you know, in terms of your kind of your values and who you are as a business, you might champion like women in business, for example. So you might just interview amazing female business owners, like not necessarily because they have also. So for example, if you know that your audience is entrepreneurs, they're interested in hearing about other entrepreneurs. So you might have one or two questions in there. If you're talking about, for you, for example, you might have one or two questions in there about marketing, but actually it's thinking with everything. It's like, what is my audience interested in? What are they going to find fascinating? And then by adding that value or that information or that entertainment or whatever it is, then that's giving them some value and they're going to want to keep coming back. And especially if you have that series, they're going to be ready to like look at the next one.
Yeah, definitely. And it's for me, we were just talking before we went live that it is just me and my business, and it does take the pressure off. It really does. So I'm actually busy planning the next 3 months from July to September, and I have got a couple of Manal meets in there. And there might be a couple more if I feel that there's just too many blog posts for me to write, because it is really easy to fire off the questions and get someone to just fill in the answers and send them back. And then it takes me no time at all to publish it. It takes less time to publish one of those than it does to an actual blog post, because I have to think about the formatting and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a really good format, and you never know, Rin, you might be coming back as a Manal Meets guest at some point when I've figured out a different topic to talk about.
Definitely.
In terms of guest bloggers for your own blog, have you got some hard and fast tips of the types of things that you should consider when asking someone to blog for you? Because it's quite a big deal to have someone in your space, and you want to know that it's someone that's reputable at least. Yeah,
exactly. I think that's the thing, is that, you know, by showcasing somebody on your blog, you're essentially endorsing them in some way. You are saying, I trust that this person has something to say that you'll find useful. So if they don't have anything to say that's useful, then you kind of don't want them to be there, and that's going to reflect poorly on you. But also, I think thinking about, are they genuinely valuable for your audience? I think I keep coming back to that, but you know, the whole point of content marketing is to provide value, which, yes, in turn has a business purpose, but that's where the strategy comes in, is balancing that giving value and getting value from it. So you want to make sure that they've actually got something to say that your audience will care about, rather than you kind of be going, oh, but this person's really good for my look. It's like, if people don't really care, then don't bother. Also, what can they bring you? What can they offer? So if you imagine, you know, if you might write one guest post a month, or host one guest post a month. That's 12 in a year. That's not a lot. If there's loads of people that you want to have on there, like, who are the very best? Who are the people who they've actually got a pretty good audience? They've got some kudos. They've got some credibility. Essentially, the more famous or whatever that they are, the better, in a sense. That sounds very sort of basic, and it isn't just about that. But and also, there's a sort of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours sort of vibe, where actually, if you really want to be a guest on somebody else's blog, then you might suggest that they might be a guest on yours, and you can do a swap. So that could be a nice way of doing it.
Yeah, and it's always nice to reciprocate, isn't it? Because like writing a blog post does take time. So if someone's spent that time for you, then it's nice to go back and say, well, is there anything you need to write about? I've done that a couple of times. I've done sort of swaps with people as well, and it just helps you build that relationship as well. So you keep coming back and doing stuff together. So in terms of going and pitching to write on someone, like if it's someone that you don't know at all. Because I probably get about 10 to 15 of those emails that you talked about. Can you put a link in this blog post, or can we write this blog post? We'll pay you to write this blog post. You found a couple of organisations that have got your target audience, and you want to go in and sort of pitch a blog post to them. How would you go about doing that?
So I suppose it's a sliding scale, because on the one hand, you've got actual publications like journalistic publications, magazines and newspaper sites, where they fully expect pictures all the time from journalists, and potentially in a more PR sort of a way. And then you've got in the middle the more online blogs that are run as publications. It's not quite as strict editorial standards as, say, the Guardian website, or whatever it is, but it's very much about the publishing is what it's doing, rather than it actually selling another product or service. And then obviously you've got pure people's business websites where you could host a blog. I suppose the first thing to check is always to say, do you accept guest posts? Because if the answer is no, we really don't, then there's no point in doing it. But I would say, do be able to very succinctly say, I would love to write a post about this, or I would love to write it. It could be, here is my idea. The subject would be about this. The reason I think it links with your audience is this. Here's why because again, I come from a journalism background, and I used to, as a freelancer, I used to pitch obviously all the time. And people would say, why this, why you, and why now? So it's like, you need to be able to answer that question. Why should they have this subject as a guest post? What's going to be useful to their audience? Why you? So what is your expertise that you should write this post rather than anyone else writing it? And also, why now? So is it a relevant piece now? So is it linked to something that's going on, in the world, or is there a particular hook for it? And if you can kind of tick at least 2 out of those 3 boxes, and ideally 3, then you've got a really strong chance of that person going, actually, that would be a really good idea. And especially if you know that they do take guest posts. The thing is, if you know that they do already, so you might have seen, do your research. This is the other thing. Like, there's no point, like if somebody came to you and said, oh, I've got this really, I'd like to write a guest post on, I can't think of an example now, finances and how to organize your finances.
I've had those. I've had an email from a lady in America who pitched a whole series of recipes, and I'm like, you checked what I do.
Exactly, to do your research, because otherwise it's almost a bit rude, isn't it? It's like, hang on, so you're clearly not thinking of this as having a benefit for me. You're just looking out for the benefit for you. So make sure that there will be a mutual benefit, and that's how can you really turn that down? But you don't have to necessarily. So I was just thinking about the finance example. Somebody might come to you and say, well, listen, I'm a finance company, you're a marketing company. Would you be interested in us writing a guest post on how to set a marketing budget? So then it's kind of like, oh, okay, cool. So you might have your insights into that, but they'll also have their finance insights, and that could be useful. So again, it's beneficial for them, it's beneficial for you, and it's really beneficial for your audience, because that's something that, I have no idea.
So, and it has to come back to what that business is doing, because for me to accept blog posts with recipes, I love cooking, I love baking. And people know that. People who know me well and are in my community know that. But for me to suddenly start bombarding them with these kinds of blog posts, it just makes no sense, does it? Really? And I know
it brings down your brand, doesn't it? And I think that's the thing, is that we're all, as business owners, trying really hard to create a distinct brand image that stands out from what is frankly a very crowded internet. It doesn't matter what you do, and unless you're like a really, really, really niche person, like or business, there's so many options out there, and it's really hard to kind of say this is why we are the one person you should be speaking to. So if you start to dilute that with random stuff that has nothing to do with your business, it's quite tricky.
And do you think it's okay to approach an organisation that you don't have a relationship with to say, I see you're taking guest posts, and go through the process that you've said?
Yeah, I think it's like anything in life, you don't if you don't ask, you don't get. And so long as it's so good, isn't it? Like, so as a great example of this, back in early 2017, must have been 2017, I got an email from a guy at UWE saying, I'm just coming to the end of my first year on the creative and commercial writing course, and I'm looking for internships. And I'd literally just taken on my second team member. So there's 3 of us, the other were working part-time. And I went back to him and I was like, we're really tiny, right? Like, you might not want to come work for us. He said, no, I've done work experience at like bigger companies, but I'd really like to try like a smaller agency. And I really liked his email. It was really, really well phrased. It was like, it was well written, and he obviously wanted to come do writing internships. And I was like, okay, well, let's have a chat. And then we chatted on the phone. Anyway, he ended up doing, because I couldn't afford to pay him at the time, I was like, well, don't do like a 3-month internship. That's it. It seems rude. Just do 1 day a week. And he did that for three months. He was so good. We ended up offering him a 1 day a week job through the rest of his studies for the next 2 years. And last July, when he graduated, he joined the business full time, and he's now a senior copywriter.
Amazing.
And I'm so grateful that he had the get up and go to actually, be proactive and get in touch with them. Yeah, and he's got a job out of it. That's I mean, I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time with anything. No. You ask. If you don't ask, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing they can say is no, or not right now, but we'll it's a great idea and we'll come back when it's the right time. So I mean, the worst thing is you get a no.
Yeah, and then you pitch to somebody else.
Yeah, and at least you've tried, and that you've tried, and
exactly.
You either leave it a little bit longer and try again and hope that it's a good time, or you move on
to feedback as well. By the way, I'm so sorry if you can hear a lawnmower from my neighbour.
I can't, but
yeah. But yeah, so what was I going to say then about
getting feedback?
Yes, getting feedback. That's it. Thank you. That if they just come back and say no, thank you, you can always go back and say thanks for getting back to me. Because to be fair, a lot of people will just not say anything, and certainly when I was a journalist, it was just exhausting because you'd send out 20 pictures and you'd get 3 people come back and all of them said no, like great, but 17 people wouldn't. But if somebody comes back and says no, you can thank them for responding, and you can say, do you have any feedback as to why? Was it as in was it the subject? Was it they're just not taking posts? And that will help you again refine and get back to it.
Yeah, and the more information you get,
sense, isn't it?
Say again.
Essentially, this is digital PR, and this is where it's interesting because marketing, like journalism, PR used to be such a distinct thing, and PR and marketing used to be such a distinct marketing, but the sort of communications and content, but content's made it's not just about pitching to traditional public, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's interesting because every time, if you do get a knockback and you get that feedback, it's just going to help you to refine your pitch for the next time, because you understand what perhaps didn't quite hit the mark. And even if it's not with that business, someone else, you'll know, it's a similar business and I didn't say this thing last time, but I'm going to put it in this time and see how it goes. So it's definitely worth a go. But you've inspired me to try and go and find places where I haven't got time to write my own blog post, quite frankly. I might start making a list of places that I do want to write for and get to.
Yeah.
So have you got any final sort of tips in general in terms of blogging that people can take and use in their writing?
Yes, a few things. So we've already mentioned it, but I have to come back to it, which is add value for your audience. If your audience doesn't care, nobody's going to read it, no matter how beautifully written it is. Your subject lines are incredibly important and they need to be as specific as possible. So, 10 reasons to do a thing. It's if anyone else could have written it, then it's just not quite going to cut it. And it's not that you shouldn't have that foundational stuff. Like we've got a piece on, everything you need to know about our blogging course, or we've got freelance copywriter versus copywriting agency. Which one's right for your business? Now, any freelance copywriter or any copywriting agency could write that, but those are the foundational basics that we kind of need to cover. But then there's also we wrote a piece about the science of reading and why it matters for marketers, and that's very much about how people read online, how they kind of scan, and as a result how your website copy and online kind of writing needs to be. And that's something that comes very specifically from our understanding and knowledge. Plus also we'd reference this other article as a study by the Nielsen Norman Group, but it was really specific, it's really niche. And as I said, I think when we were talking before, I've got loads of blog posts about blogging. So it's not just how to write a blog, because that's huge. And you might do how to write a blog, which is then going to feed into all the different ones because you create internal links. But you want to write ones on how to write a great title, how to structure a post, how long should they be, how often should you blog. You want to separate that and get really, really niche on your titles. Because if you think about it, I can't remember, there was somebody, I think it was David Ogilvy, said something about once you've got your headline, you've spent 80 cents in your dollar, because that is the most important thing. If people not interested in the headline, they're not going to get to the first paragraph. And then the first paragraph then has to set out, what benefit am I actually going to get from reading this? By the time I'm finished reading this, what's the value to me? And that's going to keep people reading through. And then just remember to use subheads to break it up, because you don't want walls of text with paragraphs. Don't go more than sort of 3, 4, 5 max paragraphs, I'd say, before you've got another subhead, just to help break it up.
Yeah, and because I use WordPress and I've got that Yoast plugin, and it tells me when I've got too much without any heading, like subheadings. So it's no, that's not good. So I need to. But once you do that, once you practice that for a while, because I used to write really long form, but now I naturally my sections break up into smaller paragraphs. You learn how to write that way, which I didn't know when I first started doing blog posts. So,
and don't be afraid as well to kind of mix it up a little bit. So you can have a slightly longer paragraph sometimes, because that's what's needed. Generally err on the side of not doing longer, but occasionally you might just have a one-line sentence, like one sentence, and then you start in a paragraph, because it helps it stand out. Or I don't know, I wrote something recently and I did a paragraph and then a new line, and I said but ... and then I did another paragraph, because I really wanted people I wanted a dramatic pause, and that was my way of putting a pause in. So you can also play with it. You get creative and read loads, read brands that you admire, see what they're writing and how they're writing, and pick up stuff. I mean, there's a book, I haven't actually read it, but somebody recommended it to me recently, called Steal Like an Artist. And I love that concept, is that at the end of the day, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Look at what's out there and what people are doing, look at what's working, and then do that, and then test it. Be quite regular. If you're going to blog once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever you decide to do, and do that. If you're doing it less than every 2 weeks, it's just really hard to see the pattern. It takes so long.
It does,
once a week is better. I mean, apparently 11 posts a month is your ideal, but who's got time for that? Who's got time for that? Right?
So, but I think for the first 2 or 3 years, I blogged every week, and then things kind of went a little bit awry as I got busier working. And then that's when I decided to introduce the Manal Meets, because it was really easy to send off a bunch of questions to people and have them come back, and then you've got a ready-made post and that. But at the last year, I decided that I was going to get some guest posts, and my husband has worked in sales for ages, so sales and marketing. So he wrote me a couple of guest posts on sales, which really took the pressure off. And then this year I was like, no, we're going to blog every other week, and I've mostly managed it.
But it's terrible. This is the thing, is that I'm very much a case of the shoemaker's children never get shod, because I'm always banging on about everyone else being consistent, and then every now and then I'm like, oh no, I've not done it. So what we did, we had once a fortnight to start with. Then we upped it to once a week for quite a long time, which is great. And now we still put something out once a week every Wednesday, but it might be like a reworked post, because we've got over 200 posts now on the website. So it's got to a point where there is still new content that I'm wanting to produce, but it's stuff that I need to kind of take a little bit more time over and do a bit more research. But actually going back and updating old posts is a really, really powerful thing to do, because Google likes it for a start. And also you sort of, you've got the bulk of it there, and you might just go, oh, I've learned a bit more about this thing, or actually I've got a few more good examples, or you know, I'm just going to make it a little bit, like I wrote a piece once on, you know, I think how to stay consistent with your blogging in 2018. It's like, well, I could just rewrite that as a how to stay consistent with your blogging and just take the 2018 off. Do you know what I mean? So there's lots you can do to kind of go back.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. What I am going to do is, if I can make my mouse work. Where is it? There it is. This is in the link in the blog post that Rin wrote for me, but she's got some amazing resources. I'm going to call them Rin's resources. Right, as well, on her website. Have I spelled that right? No, that doesn't look right. Can't type and talk at the same time. So I'll just put those in the chat, and that's a link straight to Rin's website, and there's some fantastic resources on there. So go and check those out. Say again?
We'll be adding more to those as well. I've got a couple of books that have been written, and I like the one that intrigued me was the Level Up Your Business blog, which I'm going to go and look at. That's the blogging course.
The course. Okay, cool.
That's the course. So yeah, we're in the middle of one at the minute, and we've got the next one will be starting sometime in September.
Nice.
But the one that people might find useful, just this particular audience, is the Business Owners Blog Title Toolkit. So it's a digital download. It's £27 plus VAT. Basically, so it's a very affordable resource, and it's basically 5 tools that walk you through that process. It's essentially the process that we use to generate ideas for our own blog, but also for our clients. So kind of taking you through from that general brainstorming stage all the way through, like, getting those topics, narrowing them down, and actually making them, you know, the 80 cents in a dollar. So I think nailing that really, really good topic that will get people clicking.
I might actually buy that, because I know inspiration sometimes. Thank you ever so much again for joining me. It's been really interesting. It's been really good just talking about blogging, and I know that a number of people on my list especially, so I'm probably will send out the link for people to rewatch this. They've been asking for that. So I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with Amber Bush. And the reason we're talking about the Small Biz 100 is because it does so many wonderful things to promote your business. And it, you know, entering awards and getting these kinds of recognition should be part of what you do to market your business. So we're going to get the inside track from Small Business Saturday. So thank you for joining us today. You're all very quiet. There were no questions, but I hope you found it useful. Do follow Rin. She's on social media. You'll be able to get her links from her website, but that link that I just posted in the chat is directly to the resources page, but all her social media links are on her website. And I'll see you all in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye.